Today we had a Nintendo Direct, but let's be very honest right off the bat. This was probably not the Nintendo Direct that you wanted, or truthfully that I wanted, but it is the Nintendo Direct that we got. So I'm going to give you my reaction, my review, my recap, and tell you the highlights if you didn't want to sit through 25 minutes of not Nintendo stuff when we really need Nintendo stuff. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. I think when you have a new system out that people paid a lot of money for, you got to bring the games one after another. Not necessarily the releases, but at least the info, the dates, and the announcements to keep people very excited. Nintendo feels very confident that DK Bonanza and Mario Kart World can carry them for quite a long time. Not too long, stay to the end for a tease about what's next, but let's talk about the best and the brightest from this partner showcase, starting off with Zelda, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Imprisonment showing up. A lot of people didn't think this was possible, especially given that Nintendo changed the wording on the way that they listed their partner showcase, but they're changing a lot about these presentations. Gotta give a shout out to Green Macaroni. In the lead up to the Direct, there was this whole smooth jazz, sleepy time music, and all of these shapes moving around. One of them was way too shiny, way too wet. It was a puke green macaroni. That will be haunting me forever. Be careful if you dare to rewind and go see the green macaroni before the Direct. But the whole presentation of these Directs has leveled up for Switch 2, which I do appreciate. And I appreciate them including Hyrule Warriors. That game looks really fantastic, and if it runs at a strong 60 FPS on Switch 2, it's going to be an instant pickup for me. But no date. They gave us no date for that game except saying winter again. Now, when they said winter at the initial Switch 2 Direct, I thought, okay, this is probably a 2025 game. But them saying winter now and not giving any date or even month tells me it is an early 2026 game. I don't think you're playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment until February of next year. That's my prediction right now. I don't think that's coming out in this calendar year at all, which is a bummer and makes its inclusion kind of pointless. Yes, we did get to see a Nintendo game, right? Sort of a published game in this presentation where it didn't have to be. Maybe there's another Direct that shows off more, but I don't think this game is coming out this year. If it was, they surely would have announced it in this Direct because they gave us titles all the way up through December. Now, that was probably the most exciting point because it was a Nintendo published game. Other than that, this show was pretty... I hate to do it, but thumbs down. All right, there really wasn't anything super exciting, and to me, the top game was Adventures of Elliott, which I thought was Octopath Traveler's action RPG spinoff, but then they also announced Octopath Traveler 0, so there's two games from Square Enix that are HD 2D. One is a new Octopath Traveler, but one is this new action RPG that honestly looked really good. The name is Bonk. Adventures of Elliott is such a weird name. It makes me think of what's that game where you feed the little pills to your guy and he morphs? It was like a remake on Wii. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Boy and His Blob. It makes me think of that, Adventures of Elliott, for some reason, or Little Nemo, but regardless, that game looks sick. I think what I needed out of the HD 2D was a gameplay change-up, and getting the action RPG style honestly looks really cool. I thought that looked way better than Octopath Traveler 0, even though Octopath Traveler 0 was the one more thing. But there were two more things. Both games are closely linked. One, Adventures of Elliott, is out in 2026 with a demo available today. That's good. One is available December 5th, Octopath Traveler 0. Outside of that, though, yeah, you got a confirmed date for Star Wars Outlaws. You got new Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2. Well, old, but coming to Switch newly. You got Just Dance 2026. And, yeah, Monster Hunter Stories 3, I'd say, was the other, big thing. That was what opened the Direct, and that's 2026, but pretty cool. The graphics did look very nice. I will say there was a huge variety of graphical fidelity in this presentation, which does make me a little nervous for Switch 2. I hope that it is not a problem for Switch 2. I hope it's not something that comes to really bother us. But look at the difference between the cutscene for Yakuza Kiwami 2, where the facial hair is just boom in your face, and it's so darn nice looking. And then go look at the cutscenes for Star Wars Outlaws, which looked really rough. Granted, it's Ubisoft's first game on the Switch 2, whereas the Yakuza Sega team has had already a Yakuza game out, but Ubisoft is going to need to up their efforts. Hopefully that was just some early footage, but that game is out in late September, and it's coming soon, and it was really disappointing looking. I'm assuming that was the Switch 2 version, and it kind of looked like butt, which, sucks to say and should not be the case. There were some other good gets here in terms of Persona 3 Reload. I know it's an old port, but that's going to be sick on the system, and that did look good. And then Cronos, which is the new game from Bloober Team, giving us some horror Dead Space action. I think that game looks absolutely sick. I think that game looks fantastic. I know not a lot of people are probably going to be pumped for it. It did look kind of in between. I'd say that looked a little rough. Not where I would have wanted it to look, but it's hard to judge. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about graphics at all because this is via YouTube, right? So it's like, what's the fidelity like? Everything I've played on Switch 2 has looked awesome. I think that Cyberpunk looks awesome on Switch 2. I think Kanutsugami looks awesome on Switch 2. I think all the games from Nintendo, of course, look awesome on Switch 2. So I'm going to trust that Nintendo and their developing partners, publishing partners, have this on lockdown. Persona 3 is coming soon. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, a lot of people will be excited about. I'm not personally a big fan of the arena fighter, but that game is coming soon. That was something highly anticipated, highly predicted. There were some smaller titles thrown in there like Hella, which is basically like mice trying to save a witch. Yeah, that's a weird description, but at least it isn't a farming sim. I think that was kind of my takeaway, was like this was filling the gaps. But my issue is none were really like heavy hitters. Now, for some people, Octopath Traveler 0 will be a heavy hitter. For some people, Monster Hunter Stories 3 or Persona 3 Reload. But first of all, where are the games that were at the Switch 2 initial direct? Elden Ring does not have a date. Final Fantasy VII Remake does not have a date. Borderlands 4 got its date, but we knew that. Yikes. I mean, it's good to see a game like Cronos get day-and-date treatment with other platforms. I'm pumped for that. I believe the shadow drops were Campfire Simulator and Romancing Saga 2. I know there's some JRPG fans that will be nuts about Romancing Saga 2 being a shadow drop, but the Campfire game, like, that's Nintendo throwing their weird Nintendo thing in there, and it wasn't even Nintendo. It was Oink Games, who actually make board games and card games, and they're doing now like a build your campfire with your Switch camera. Yeah, it's just not good. Funny, not good, right? Entertaining and like, what? Shadow drop? But not something that I think anyone's going to really want to buy. And the question you have to ask yourself is, how much of this direct do you want to play and buy? At the end of the day, that should be the way that you review it. For me, there's actually quite a few. It's hard for me to give this thing like a D when I know I want to play Persona 3 Reload. I know that I want to play Adventures of Elliott despite the name. I know that I want to check out and see how Star Wars Outlaws runs on the system. If they can actually get it together, that's going to be an interesting barometer. Cronos, I'm all about. There were a few other games like Katamari in there that I don't really have much interest in. I think most people are going to walk away from this show saying like it sucked. Here's like a different perspective. This was a boring show in the grand scheme of Switch 2, but it does get all of this stuff out of the way, and it lays the groundwork for what can come next. And I'll tell you this much, there is more in store when it comes to Nintendo presentations in the near future, okay? It may not be exactly what you wanted. It may not be anything that you wanted. And I do think there's some strange omissions. Like I said, why does Elden Ring not have a date? Why does Final Fantasy VII not have a date? Why does a game like Professor Layton not pop up here? I mean, they showed us NBA Bounce and Madden and FC, but that's not going to move the needle for a lot of people. Madden does look good. Again, the difference in quality of like Outlaws, Cronos, Madden, Yakuza, I'm very curious to see how these games all end up running and performing. I feel like look, from a sales perspective, the Switch 2 is fine. It's sold like hotcakes. It's going to continue to do that. As soon as they date some new Nintendo games, people are going to go crazy and pre-order them. They could even do it separate from Directs. They could date games on the Nintendo Today app. That's where they revealed Splatoon Raiders. They could be like tomorrow. They could say that Metroid Prime 4 is out in September. But right now, like Nintendo, I think that in the future, you should give us the first party stuff first and then the partner showcase. I know they like to lay the table setting, right? They're like, here's the appetizer. We'll give you the main course later. But I think it's very bad for their like morale and their mind share. I think Nintendo, like, tell me if you agree or disagree with me, but Nintendo should be leveraging and using their first party exclusives first and then backfill with this third party stuff. Like, that would make people a lot more at ease. You could watch the show and say like, okay, like there's a few things I like there. I'll get Persona, I'll get Cronos, I'll get Elliott. Maybe I'll check out Sparking Zero. Monster Hunter Stories 3 could be really good. I'm definitely not playing Katamari or that Campfire game or Pac-Man again, right? I mean, maybe you are, but like I'm just saying for me, that would feel so great if I knew when Metroid Prime 4 was coming out. If I knew what Kirby Air Riders was and what Sakurai had cooked up. If I knew what the big holiday title was going to be and I knew in some of these games that were already shown off. I think there's this problem that Nintendo has had with all levels of their presentations, General Directs, partner showcases, and Indie Worlds, where they reveal games, never date them, and then reveal more. And it starts to feel like, when is stuff actually coming out? Where's the stuff that we actually want? Like, imagine if Animal Crossing had been announced and was out of the way, and then you got this show, you'd be like, okay, this is icing on the cake. If a partner showcase comes out after a general, it feels like icing on the cake, even if you're not about that icing. Icing's too sugary for some people. But if a partner showcase comes out first, it feels like soggy, watered down icing as what you're supposed to eat, and then you find out later that there's cake that you could have put it on. Like, it's just a bad order of operations. It's not a good way to do things, and I think it leaves the fan base really bummed out. So Nintendo, if you're watching, which you're not, do the generals first and then the partner showcases, and you'll get a lot better reception, or at least a lot less upset of a reception. I'm not upset because I do know there's more coming, and at the end of the day, we just got to be patient. The Switch 2 is a big system. There's a ton of games coming for it. They delayed this thing internally just to have more games ready, and it's good to see third parties showing up and showing out and starting to put a variety of titles. Look, we've got remakes, we've got ports, we've got day-and-date games, we got games coming a little late, like a Persona 3 Reload, but still one we'd love to have in the system. We've got Square Enix and other companies showing like, hey, they prioritize Switch 2, Capcom with Monster Hunter Stories 3, Square Enix with Adventures of Elliott, and Octopath Traveler 0. Those aren't Switch 2 exclusives, but they are games that are getting shown off first here. And then there's some fun small things along the way, some shadow drops. Like, it's not all bad, but given when this came out, what we were expecting, what we wanted, what we need to see from our new $500 system, I do give this a C-. I think it could have been a lot better, but I think most of it has to do with the framing. Guys, you got to change the order of these things. But if I look at it, I got to be honest, I can't give this a D or an F. I might even have to give it a straight C because I'm getting a lot of the games. And at the end of the day, these presentations probably should be graded on how many of the games do you want to play. The problem is I knew about a lot of the games that I wanted to play, like Madden's already been announced, Borderlands 4 has already been announced. There were some good gets. It wasn't all bad, but I totally can see how you felt like this was the worst show ever and a total waste of time, and you're valid because Nintendo really should have done the General Direct first. Now, like I said, there's a tease at the end, which is there's more Nintendo presentations in the near future. That's all I'm going to say. Let me know your take in the comments down below. How would you review this? How would you rate this? Are there games you're going to get? Honest. Are there games you're going to get? Because no matter what you think, no matter if you were wishing for AC and Mario and Zelda, well, you got Zelda in a weird way without a date. How many of the games are you going to get? If there's like 3 or more games you're going to get, I don't see how you could fail this show. I think that means it was pretty successful. You can't get every game. You're not going to want to get every game. But if there's 3, 4, or even 5, it feels pretty darn good. So let me know how many there were in the comments down below. Your top picks. I think Adventures of Elliott looks swanky, but Cronos, I'm so excited that's on Switch. Madden, so glad that's on Switch. Borderlands 4, Persona 3 Reload. Maybe it, it's a lot about how you do things, and Nintendo just didn't do this in the best way possible. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love y'all lots. SwitchForce out.